Today we are going to learn lesson 2.6, dividing decimals. Okay, and there's a couple things that we need to know about when we divide decimals. We always need to make sure that our divisor is a whole number. Okay, when we're given a division problem, that first number is called our dividend. Okay, that second number is called our divisor, and that's what we need to make sure is always a whole number. Okay, if it's not a whole number, then we need to do just one extra step in order to make it a whole number. All right, when we are dividing a decimal by a whole number, that's going to be the easiest example that we're going to have, just because that divisor already is a whole number. Okay, when we write a division problem, the dividend goes inside the division sign, and the divisor goes outside. Okay, so this number outside always has to be a whole number. Well, 4 is a whole number, so that's it. When we are dividing a decimal by a whole number, all we do is carry that decimal straight up. Okay, and that's where the decimal is going to be in our answer. Then we just divide like normal. We pretend like we're dividing 76 by 4. So we ask ourselves, how many times does 4 go into 7? It only goes in there once. 1 times 4 is 4. We subtract to see how many we have left over. 3 is smaller than 4, so we know we're doing it right. Then we drop down that 6 to make this a 36. We ask ourselves, how many times can 4 go into 36? Well, that's going to be 9 times. So we're going to write it above that 6 because that's what we dropped down just like we would before. Okay, 9 times 4 is 36. We have no remainder and we're out of numbers up here, so this is our final answer. 1 and 9/10 is that final answer. Okay, so when we have a whole number as a divisor, we divide just like we do with long division. We just have to remember to bring that decimal point up. All right, so let's divide a decimal by a decimal. Same exact idea, except for we have to make that divisor into a whole number by multiplying by a multiple of 10. Okay, just like in that activity today, we realized that as long as we multiply both numbers by the exact same number, our quotient or our answer does not change. Okay, so when we write this division problem, 18.2 goes inside, 1.4 goes outside. Now to make 1.4 a whole number, we need it to be 14, so we need to move that decimal one place over. Whatever we do on the outside, we have to do to the other number in order to not change our answer. All right, so this problem, I'm going to rewrite it so it's not sloppy, becomes 182 divided by 14. Okay. Now the decimal in 182 comes after the 2, so that's where our decimal in our answer is going to be. We say how many times can 14 go into 1? 0. How many times can 14 go into 18? Once. 1 times 14 is 14. We subtract, find our remainder. Bring down our 2. 14 can go into 42. Here's where we just do some guessing and checking. I'm going to say 3 times. 4 times 3 is 12. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. 42 exactly. Subtract 42. We have a remainder of 0 and no more numbers. All right, so here our final answer is 13. Okay, moving on to the next kind of example, dividing a whole number by a decimal. Here we have the whole number 578 being divided by 3 4/10. Okay, now this becomes tricky because we know we had to make this divisor a whole number by moving that decimal place over and making this into 34, but there's no decimal in 578, so we have to think to ourselves, $578.00, where does that decimal go in that dollar amount? Well, it goes after this 8. Okay, so when we move it 1 over on the outside, we still have to move it over 1 on the inside, and we're going to fill this empty space with a 0. All right, so this problem is going to become 5,780 divided by 34. Now that our divisor is a whole number, we're just going to divide as normal using long division. How many times can 34 go into 5? 0. How many times can 34 go into 57? Once. subtract to see what's left over. How many times can 34 go into 238? Here again is where we're going to have to guess and check. I'm just going to throw a random number out there. Let's check it for 5 times. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 3 is 15, 16, 17. 170, that's too low, so that means that the number we're multiplying by has to be a little bit bigger. Let's try 34 times 7. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 3 is 21, 22, 23. So 7 it is, 238. Oops, that should probably be in red. Subtract 238. We get a remainder of 0. Now what we're going to notice is we have an extra 0 up here, so we didn't go through all of our numbers. All right. We could say how many times can 34 go into 0? That's 0. Or we can know just when we have a remainder of 0 and a 0 left over, we can just add that 0 up here. All right. Our final answer in this problem is going to be 170. All right. These last two I want you to try on your own. Okay, so grab a piece of paper if you don't have a note sheet, and try these two on your own, and then resume the video to check your answers. Here we're going to have 7.2 divided by 0.48. Move the decimal over twice to make it a whole number, decimal over twice to make it a whole number. Fill in with a 0. Now we have 720 being divided by 48. 48 goes into 72 once. We subtract. Make that a 6 in order to make that a 12. 12 minus 8 is 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. Last step, we bring down that 0. How many times can 48 go into 240? Well, we're just going to have to guess and check. Let's try 48 times 5. 8 times 5 is 40. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 4 is 24. Well, that worked out nicely. Subtract to see our remainder. We have no remainder. We're all out of numbers, so our final answer is 15. Same idea over here. We have 36 and 47 hundredths being divided by 7 tenths. We need to make 7 tenths into a whole number, which would be 7. Move it over once. Whatever we do outside, gotta do to that number inside in order to have the same exact answer. We have a 7 on the outside, we have 364 and 7 tenths on the inside. When we have a decimal in our dividend, we just carry that decimal place up and then we divide as normal. 7 can go into 3 0 times. 7 can go into 36 5 times. 5 times 7 is 35. We subtract to find our remainder and bring down our next number. 7 can go into 14 twice. 2 times 7 is 14. We subtract to find our remainder and then bring down our next number. Notice how we don't bring down the decimal because we already translated it up into our answer, so we don't need to do anything with it when we're dividing. 7 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 7 is 7. We subtract. We have a 0 remainder. We have no numbers left. So 52 and 1/10 is our final answer. All right, and that is all of our lesson. All right, main things we need to remember to do is to make that divisor, that number outside the division sign, into a whole number before we start dividing. Whatever we do to that number outside, we have to do to the number inside in order to keep the same answer. All right, otherwise we're changing the problem. You may now write your summary, include those important points that I just summarized for you as well, and then you can also go back to any parts of the video that you need to rewatch for more clarification.